Good morning, everyone. I'm Alan Percy. I'm Dave's son-in-law, and the family has asked me to share a little bit of information about Dave and the family to get things started. And we've got some other speakers that will be joining us, my two boys and Uncle Bob. So first, I'll make an introduction to some folks. First, of course, is Alice. I think you've all had a chance to greet Alice. Dave's wife is 67 years. My wife, Susan, and her oldest child, or she's the oldest child, and Tom Niver and Amy Allen also joins us here. Amy's husband, John, is also joining us here. John, where are you? We're over there. Okay. Dave had 4 grandchildren. David, who's joined with his wife, Christine. Jonathan, who's joined with his wife, Cassandra, Mary Alice, and Claire. So where are you 4? There you go. There you go. All right, and Claire's joined by her boyfriend, Austin Robert. And thank you, Austin, for coming. Dave has one great-grandchild, Nora May, who turned 1 this week, and we're joined by many Niver and Kamar relatives who have traveled a lot of miles to be with us today. I'd like to give a special shout-out to Dave's sibling, Bob, Martha, and Jane, who traveled here from New Hampshire to visit Dave before he passed. And finally, thanks to all of you for being here today and to honor a very special man. Dave was born June 8, 1930 in Corning, New York, to Julia Bauer and Art Niver. Dave was the oldest of 5 children, and his brother Bob will fill us in on his youth a little bit later. Let's skip ahead to 1948 when Dave meets a beautiful girl in a red bathing suit at Champlain Beach in Hammondsport, New York. That girl, Alice Niver, becomes his wife on August 20th, 1955. Between 1948 and 1955, Dave worked at Taylor Winery and served in the Air Force in Biloxi, Mississippi. Dave and Alice settled in Buffalo, New York. Alice taught school, and Dave got his degree in economics from the University of Buffalo. After graduation, he started his career at Bethlehem Steel. Then soon after, Dave and Alice settled into Western New York. But Dave and Alice welcomed their 3 children, Susan, Thomas, and Amy, and bought a starter home in Mount Vernon Boulevard in Hamburg. Many of the family's activities centered around the Bethlehem Management Club, where they swam, played tennis, bowled, and Dave golfed. And he golfed. And he golfed. The Bethlehem Management Club was the local point of a lot of Dave and Alice's social life and where many lifelong friendships were made. Dave loved sports, and at one time he had season tickets for the Bills, Sabres, and Braves, in addition to playing golf, tennis, and bowling. And at one point, prompting Alice to remind Dave that he had 3 children at home. So, Dave and Alice bought their next family home, a large fixer-up at 300 Long in the village of Hamburg, which we all love. That was the place to be, right? With a price tag of $32,500 and a repair list a mile long. Dave's father, Art, predicted bankruptcy. All the warnings aside, Dave and Alice, with the help of Dave's Uncle Doc, transformed 300 Long Avenue into a lovely home. 300 Long became the centerpiece of Dave and Alice's life, hosting holidays, friends, and a succession of parties, starting with the memorable parties thrown by Dave and Alice. Who can forget the infamous party, continuing with the secret parties around Sue, Tom, and Amy? You did you? Friends of Sue, Tom, and Amy would gather regularly at 300 Long, earning Dave the nickname of Papa Niver. Once Dave and Alice retired, the focus became their grandchildren, David, Johnny, Mary Alice, and Claire. Dave and Alice made yearly trips to Florida to escape the Buffalo winters and embrace visits from the kids and the grandkids. There were many memories that made these years. Segway rides in Florida where Dave ran Mary Alice off the road, airboat rides in the Everglades, a trip to Disney, picnics on the rocks at Hamburg Beach, all great fun. So Dave and Alice spent many hours watching and entertaining the grandchildren, and the result was an exceptionally close relationship with all of them. Dave was the officiant at David's and Christine's wedding. He made a special reading at Johnny and Cassie's wedding, and he was Mary Alice's bestie, and he provided a home for Claire for 10 years. Dave earned the name Poppy and was adored for it. Recently, Dave said he had 92 good years. His health issues over the last years were difficult for him, but in the light of the last year of his life was his great-granddaughter, Nora May. The little pickle puss, as Dave used to call her, brought incredible joy to him. And the last 5 months were very difficult. He elected to have hip replacement surgery, which appeared to be successful, but caused a succession of complications. And Dave, he fought quite hard, but ultimately his body just gave out, and he passed away peacefully at home. There are a few other people I'd like to speak today. First is Dave's brother, Bob. So Bob, won't you join me up here and share your thoughts?
I got a kick out of this picture, and it brought back a memory. I was the school superintendent, and we had a food service company, and every year in Marine Midland, they throw a big party. So one year I took Dave with his mustache, and this was Chuck Knox. Well, Chuck was being photographed with a bunch of people, and I went over to him and said, the photographer would like to take a picture of you and my brother. He didn't know us from nothing, but that's one of the mementos of Dave's life, Dave, Bob, and Chuck Knox. I'll try not to repeat too much of what Alan said, because a lot of Dave's history is common to us all. Well, I got to get the whole, I got 2 pages out of 3, so I'm going to get the other. I spoke at a celebration of life in Bath, New York, and I told them the story that I had a faculty meeting one time, and I said to the faculty, I forgot my speech. I got a standing ovation. So, well, when I heard that several members of the family were going to speak this morning, I decided I would not, because I've been an emotional wreck. But when Susan called and asked me to speak, I thought there are things that I know about Dave that nobody else knows that I wanted to share with you. So yes, he was born on June 8th, 1930. I love calling him my much older brother. I was born 4.5 years later. He was born during the Depression, and my mother and father and Dave lived with our grandparents in Corning, New York, and we lived there until about 1935. By that time, Don and I were born. There were 6 of us in a 3-bedroom house and an attic. I thought we lived in the attic. Dave says we did not, but that place was crowded with 6 people. When we moved to the farm, there was an experience there that became part of the Niver folklore. Dave was out at the barn, and he found a bunch of kittens. And he probably had a baseball bat. And he ushered those kittens back to the house, wanted to bring them in, make them a member of the Niver family. My mother and father came out, were horrified. They were skunks. They were not adopted. In 1939, the family moved to Hammondsport, New York, a community of less than 1,000 people, where we finally had electricity and indoor plumbing. Still no refrigerator. We had an ice box. How many of you ever had an ice box? Old Dave Fletcher. You got to be old, Dave, to remember that. Yep. Well, Dad was making $25 a week, and we thought we were on Easy Street. Dave had a paper route, Elmira Star-Gazette. When he got through, Don delivered the Elmira Star-Gazette. When he got through, I delivered the Elmira Star-Gazette. When I got through, Martha delivered the Elmira Star-Gazette. It stayed in the family for 10 or 12 years. I think Martha probably was the best paper girl. After World War II, Dad went to an auction, and as a kid, he and his family had a wooden ice maker. Maybe turn the crank. Well, somebody outbid him, and the guy came up to him and said, I'll sell you one for $5 less. So he bought that that ice maker, and that became the family tradition. And Sunday after Sunday, Mom would make the mix, Dad and the boys would turn the crank. Well, I was the youngest, so I got to do it while it was the easiest. Got a little harder, Don did it, but Dave, the strongest of the family, had to freeze it till it was edible. Dave was a good student in elementary school. When sports became more important in his life, his studies took a back seat. And in the late 40s, jobs were plentiful, when even a dropout could get a job, so there was little pressure to achieve. Dave was a natural athlete. He played basketball and baseball. Those were about the only sports we had back then. His senior year at 6'2", he was the big man. He was the center. And he scored about 60% of the points on the team, and they were 16-2. One of the best teams they ever had. He was a very good pitcher, and he was a 300-plus hitter. After graduating in 1948 as a class president, he went to Taylor Wine Company as a laborer. I never knew what prompted him to go to college, but Alice told me that every time he came to pick her up, her mother would say, "When are you going to college? Why don't you go to college?" So finally, with her encouragement and his love of sports, he went to Cortland State Teachers College in the fall of 1950 as a physical education major. Now, he never played a lineman in high school. Matter of fact, they had six-man football. That's how small Hammondsport was. But he went to Cortland, and he became a starting lineman on the freshman team at Cortland State. And he made the freshman basketball team. But the Korean War started in June of 1950. Dave was reaching the age of 21, and he was ripe for the draft. So the option was to be drafted in the Army and maybe end up in Korea in the infantry. And as he said to me years later, I was chicken, so I joined the Air Force. So he got assigned to Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi, and he went to radio school. And he did well enough there, but he was made an instructor. So he spent 3 3/4 of the year in Mississippi before the days of air conditioning. When he was discharged, he married that cute cheerleader from Bath, August 20th, 55, and he and Alice rented an apartment in Buffalo. And Dave, as Alan mentioned, enrolled at the University of Buffalo, and Alice began a long career as an elementary teacher. This began a partnership that lasted 68 years. Their 68th anniversary is August 20th. Alice was Dave's biggest supporter, very helpful in his career at Bethlehem Steel, where he worked parts of 5 decades. After 4 years of marriage, the family grew. Susan in 59, Tom 62, Amy Lou the last day of 63. He always bragged about the timing to get a tax exemption the last day of 1963.
That's why I said I was the little princess.
The little princess. Yeah. Susan and Alan welcomed David and then Johnny, and then Tom had twin girls, Claire and Mary Alice, David and Johnny. It's impossible to determine the impact that Dave and Alice had on their grandchildren. From babysitting, Alice, the teacher, worked with them, read to them. They attended their many events. They did a ton of babysitting. And now they have family dinners every Sunday night. The love they showed to the grandchildren was repaid in spades, particularly the last 6 months caring for Dave. And I have an image I'll never forget of those 2 granddaughters by his bed saying, "Poppy, we gotta leave, we'll be back tomorrow." 8 o'clock, they were back. One night when I called, they were having a family cookout at a nursing home. I never heard of that. Dave was making burgers, and Dave says, "I gotta go, the burgers are done." Dave had the same impact on their nieces and nephews. Many of them are here, coming from Minnesota, Texas, North Carolina, and South Carolina to be with their beloved uncle. Our kids loved his big hugs, going to Bills games with him. And for 20 years, when we were in Western New York, one of us did Christmas Eve, one of us did Christmas Day. It was a family tradition for 20 years. At one Bills game, and I think Tim was with him, they hadn't shoveled off the seats. So people were kicking snow off the seats. Dave said, "Hey, pal, you're kicking that snow and it's hurt my hemorrhoids. Would you knock it off?" So, he was with us at an expedition in Toronto, and they had a newfangled thing called a computer. And you could type your name in. So Pam typed her name in, Pamela Niver. It spoke your name, and it came back out, Pamula Nivier. Pamula. For the rest of her life, she was not Pamela, she was Pamula. And they loved to give nicknames. And one time, I was Jane or Martha, brought a guy to Hammondsport. His name was Sten Street. Well, Dick named him Stench Creek. And that's what he was known by in our family for years later, Stench Creek. Dave was my hero and my role model. I wanted to be just like him. An accomplished athlete, playing the tuba in the band, having the lead in the senior play, going to Boys State, being the president of the class, and have as many girlfriends as he had, most of them cheerleaders. Alice, you were not the first, but the best.
Well said.
And I couldn't remember how they met, and then the red bathing suit. Alice was a lifeguard at Champlain Beach, and I'd forgotten that's where you met. Yeah. He was comfortable in his own skin. He was a steady Eddie, always able to see the big picture of things. The family spokesman at family events, always thoughtful and articulate. A natural leader, well regarded by his peers and friends. He never sweated the small stuff. I never saw him angry, except for once. I kind of forgot this. Back in Hammondsport after the war, they had a softball league. And Taylor Wine, Urbana, and Gold Seal, all the wineries, merchants. That was very competitive, fast pitch softball. There was a game in Pleasant Valley, very rough field. And it was the bottom of the seventh inning. And Dave's team was ahead. Bases were loaded. Up comes a guy, hits a shot right down the shortstop, right through Dave's legs. They lost the game. He was so angry at himself. Now I imagine over the course of all these years, he might have been angry with you, Alice. Tom, for sure. Maybe Amy. Never with Susan. He was great with the one-liners, even up till days before he died. We sat around in his room and had a great time, and Dave would chime in from his bed with a really good liner. And Alan mentioned he loved golf, and he was good at it. Several years after retirement, he worked many years at Home Depot, retiring at age 91. I said to him, "Dave, why are you retiring? Is the work getting too hard?" "No," he said, "it's interfering with my golf." So he quit. And then they have an award there, the Homer Award. And Dave would run a Homer Award. And I said, "Dave, you never won the Homer Award." He said, "Yes, I did." "Did he win the Homer Award?"
He won many more than I did.
Yeah. Well, I thought you were the only one who won a Homer Award. His last year or two of golf, he could not lift his left arm any more than that. In the last year of his golf, he shot 243s. Now, if you know what scores mean, basically with one arm, he shot 43 twice. Did you drive for him? Huh?
I was honored he's driving.
Yeah. I've lived through the death of my four grandparents, my mother, my father, my brother. This was the most difficult death I've ever witnessed. During the last 6 months, I called him nearly every night. And we had great conversations. And not once did he complain or feel sorry for himself. He was always positive. And it was not until he could lift his left arm, feed himself, walk or turn over, that he felt his life was over. One story during his last days, the previous summer, last summer, they came to our lake in New Hampshire. He wanted to learn how to make Julie's chocolate cookies with frosting. He wanted to learn how to make biscotti. So my wife taught him how to make biscotti, and Julie taught him how to make chocolate cookies. Well, he was trying to be careful what he ate, and he asked me for one of the cookies that Julie had sent to him. And I knew he was restrictive on his diet, and I would not give him a chocolate cookie. He wanted a pineapple blizzard. I wasn't going to get him a pineapple blizzard, but I knew those girls would get him a pineapple blizzard. When I got there at 11 o'clock the next morning, there was a pineapple blizzard sitting there with 2 bites gone. That's all he took. And now I wish I'd given him that damn cookie. So, my beloved brother, brave and strong to the end, has left a big hole in our hearts. But we're all better for knowing and loving him, and his death has left a big void. Rest in peace, Dave, for a life well lived. Thank you.
I need some of that paper back. Yay. So you may have noticed yellow is a very popular color today. And what we wanted to share with you is if you went to Dave's closet and you looked in his shirt collection, they were mostly yellow. Yellow was Dave's color. And he had yellow jackets, he had yellow shirts. And so we, our tribute to him, of course, is the yellow flowers, and of course you see the shirts. And with that, I'm going to invite my my oldest son, David, to come and say a few words. So,
can't believe I have to follow Bob. That's technically I did have dibs on first, but first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. Poppy touched many lives very easily, and your presence speaks to his talent for drawing and keeping good people around him. Second, I want to thank my family for allowing, we got this, for allowing me the honor of being up here today. Poppy's importance in my life is tough to properly describe. The man taught me how to walk, for goodness sake. He got me off the bus when I was a kid. He guided me through my bad decisions in high school. He visited me at college. He got me a job over the summers where we stocked shelves together. He keyed me in when I brought the girl home that I should be more seriously considering. He stood beside me and led us through our I-dos. He told me straight up I would love to have a baby around, which led me to more quickly accepting we should really have a baby around. He was a massive yellow guiding light in my life. So when I was offered the opportunity to speak today, I took it. And I quickly realized I have no idea what I want to say. But as I thought about it, I realized that he was always there for me. And it was important for me to be there for him. And when you consider a man's death, you consider what is your legacy. What will we leave behind? Some men build skyscrapers and change the landscape. Others settle for their name on a building. Dave Niver's legacy is something truly extraordinary. Dave leaves behind generations of family and friends who understand what it is to work for those around you. You work for them because you know they are the most important thing you have in this life. Dave's legacy is all of us who hold on tight to each other. Tell each other we love one another. Treat everyone you encounter with the highest respect and never pass up a sugary dessert. So I think in the end, I'm here to thank Pop one more time for all the quiet lessons, the coaching moments, the corrective whaps over the head that I absolutely deserved, the patient leash that you let us run on, showing us how to find the beauty in a job well done, for showing me that being a man is being whatever version of yourself your family needs. Thank you, Poppy, for every memory, large and small, every hug, every call, every visit. I love you and I will miss you. And I can't wait to continue your legacy with my family. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well,
Very well, David.
Yeah.
Very well.
well, while Susan was starting to work on cleaning out Dave's files, naturally looking for insurance information and starting to look at some of the bills, and Susan, as executor's trying to do that, she found a note that was attached to one of his life insurance policies. I'm going to read it to you. It's written in this, fancy script stuff, so give me a second here. Hi there. Why is it that every time you fly, you think you're going to die? Fear of flying seems eternal. In any event, I do not tell each of you enough times how proud I am of each of you, without itemizing the reasons, because I would leave too much out. It is suffice to say that you all have done me proud. I hereby now to pass on to you more often than much like you mean to me and Mom, and how well you all have done with your careers and your families. I somehow think that you know how I feel, and nonetheless it should and will be said more often. Love you all, now and forever, Dad. And the interesting thing is, every time he flew, he wrote ditto in the date that he flew at the bottom of the note. So if you want to see it, I'll leave this up here. And I'll have Jonathan come up and say a few words. So.
I am Johnny, Poppy's grandson. I didn't know the Dave that many of you knew. By the time I had entered this world, Dave had reached his final form, and arguably his ultimate phase of life, when he became a grandfather, known by the moniker Poppy. Mary Alice, Claire, and I spent every day during summers at Nana and Poppy's for the good majority of our childhood and even into our teens. Every day at 300 Long was full of joy, laughs, and love. When I think back to those summers, it really feels like we were in a dream. It was almost as if we were in a caricature of the ideal suburban childhood. Poppy pushing us on the swing, hanging from the great big tree in the backyard, taking us to Hamburg Beach, where the girls and I would jump around on rocks for hours while Poppy watched us patiently. Having Nana and Poppy come and eat at our pretend diner, where we'd serve them delicacies. We even were occasionally allowed to eat ice cream before dinner. I wouldn't trade those summer days at Nana Poppy's for any other version of childhood out there. To me, that was as perfect as it gets. I think the reason it felt this way was how committed Poppy was to ensuring his family had a great day every day. Thank you, David. He always greeted you with a big jovial hello. He always asked how you were, what was going on in your life, and he genuinely listened and cared. He worked hard to ensure everyone had what they needed to enjoy themselves, even if it meant walking across the theme park to grab the grandkids' jackets that were left behind in the car while they play. There was no ask too big or too small for Poppy. He would truly do anything for his family, and he never made you feel even an ounce bad for it. I'll remember Poppy for his love of sweets, milkshakes, blizzards, and frappuccinos. I'll remember Poppy for his love of sports, golf, tennis, and of course, the Bills. I'll remember Poppy for our family trips to Florida where he took the grandkids to the beach to ride the waves for hours. I'll remember Poppy for his catchphrases, such as no physicality and not bad when reviewing someone's food. I'll remember Poppy for his hardworking demeanor, never taking days off and working at Home Depot till age 91. But what I'll remember most about Poppy is what he meant to this family and what he represented to us. He embodied what a father, husband, and grandfather can be when he dedicates himself to providing the best love possible for his family. He was a one-of-a-kind gentleman and the honest, fun-loving patriarch of the Niver crew. What defined Poppy to me is the love he shared with the people who meant most to him. And that will live on in his family for the rest of time. We love you, Pops.
I have a little bit of a story. I'm going to read you a poem. So in the last day or two when Dave was at the nursing home, he was starting to get emotional, and he would, the girls would be there, Mary Alice and Claire would be there, and when he started getting a little bit weepy, he'd tell the girls to leave the room, and I stayed with him. And as he tried to contain himself, he just, welled up, and as I sat quietly with him, he said, I just can't get emotional in front of those girls. So for him, automatically, it was about what happens to others. And even so far as in his literally final days, he told the girls, he said, make sure that the aides over at the nursing home are taken care of. Make sure they get, I think, a gift card from Starbucks or something like that. That's what he wanted. Dairy Queen. Yeah. So that's selfless behavior that came from Dave. Hopefully you all have been affected by that selfless and you carry it forward as you go. So I wanted to wrap up with a poem by Helen Laura Marshall. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when life is done. So I want to thank you all for joining us. From here, the extended family is going to gather at Hillcrest Cemetery for interment. And then you can join us at Roycroft Inn at 40 South Grove Street in East Aurora for Memorial Luncheon. The luncheon starts at 12:30, and we look forward to seeing you there. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Aaron.
Nice job, Alan.